Hi, everyone. It's BJ Roach from the UMaine Career Center, coming to you with our web series, Three Main Questions, day number 2. Today, we have Naomi, and I am going to let Naomi introduce herself in a second. I wanted to let you know that our topic for today is working remotely. So it's a very timely topic, and Naomi has a bit of experience doing this. So welcome, Naomi. Can you introduce yourself and tell everyone your experience working remotely?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, BJ. So hi, everyone. My name is Naomi Rose Caywood. I'm currently the Special Projects Assistant at the Career Center. So I work with students. I also work with some data analysis. But I also have another job. So I work for another organization, which is a completely remote organization. And I monitor some Facebook groups and I do some data analysis there. And I've also worked remotely with an education NGO in the past, helping with some of their programming remotely. So I'm excited to talk about this topic. It's really important right now because a lot of people are either transitioning to remote work or a lot of jobs will be going remote soon. So let's get into it.
Awesome. So question number 1, how can
Yeah.
students or alumni or parents or staff, whoever's watching us, how can they find these positions? Where do you tend to look for remote positions?
Yeah. So a lot of looking for remote jobs is very similar to looking for other opportunities as well. Different job boards actually have settings where you can look specifically for remote positions, or you can search in the location for either remote or virtual positions. You kind of have to play around with the site. You can do it on Indeed, LinkedIn. You can search for just remote in the location. And then some of the smaller, more niche sites will have actually a filter for remote jobs. So like idealist.org, which is where I found my remote position, you can look and filter just remote positions and look at only their remote positions that they have on the site. So that's very helpful. But also in the same way you would look for another job, you can go onto Google and you can search for different companies that do the type of work you're interested in. And so there are a lot of remote positions out there that are, communications, marketing, data analysis, writing, social media promotion, things along those lines. And so if you know there's an organization that you're interested in, Google them and look at their job board because they might have some remote opportunities. And then you can start searching other companies with similar interests who are doing similar work and find opportunities that way as well.
Perfect. Is the application process pretty similar to finding a traditional type of job?
Yeah, for the most part, the application process is just pretty much the same as you would for another job. Obviously, it varies a little bit company to company, but the remote positions I've applied for, it's usually like a good resume, cover letter. They'll check your references. It's usually like a 1 or 2 interview process, maybe 3. The one thing to remember when you're applying for a remote job, though, is make sure that when you're working on your application materials, you can show those skills that you're going to need to work remotely. And so that might be, being able to use platforms like Zoom or being able to communicate effectively over that type of distance. So anytime that you've had any experiences working remotely, or maybe you took a class online, see if you can highlight those either in your resume or your cover letter so they know that you have the appropriate skills for that type of job.
Perfect. That's a great point. Question number 2, can you talk a little bit about setting up your physical space? So if you're working from home, if it's data entry or Facebook moderating, that might just be computer work. But what if you're working from home and it's some computer work and then also you need to Zoom or you need to work with clients or people? Can you talk a little bit about the physical space?
Yeah. And so most jobs, when you work remotely, even if it is data analysis, you're going to be in different meetings. You're going to be talking to different people at various times, whether over the phone or through different platforms. So it's really important that you have a space where you feel comfortable so that you can go, you can sit comfortably and know that it's a little bit different when you're talking to somebody in person to talking to somebody over a video chat because you can actually see what you look like. They can see everything behind you. Sometimes it's recorded just like this one. So you'd want to make sure that you don't have people coming in and out. So it's a place that you can be secluded to some degree and people know that you're in a meeting and they can't just be walking in. So that being said, pay attention to what's going on around you. Making sure that you have a nice backdrop or a very simple backdrop. You don't want to have a lot of your personal, things up and about that maybe people could be looking at or judging or thinking about if they're not professional. And so finding that space, If you have a home office, that's obviously preferred. But if you don't, trying to find a corner of your house that you can allot that. This is just my workspace and I don't do a lot of other things in it as well. Again, making sure that you have people know that it needs to be quiet, that you need to be professional in that space. Having a comfortable chair. I've heard a lot of people talk about how they don't have a comfortable chair. And sometimes you can be in a really long meeting. So it's really important that you make sure that some of your physical needs are met. Have like a warm cup of tea or your water right there so you don't have to be getting up and moving around during those meetings.
Great. I noticed that you have an ear set. And
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about that and maybe some other special equipment that might be necessary for some of these positions?
For sure. So I definitely like to use a good quality headset with a microphone on it. And this is actually the pair that I use for running. So you don't necessarily need to just go out and get a new headset, but having something that you'll be able to hear and people will be able to hear you, that helps cut down some of the outside noise and helps you really focus. Because if you can hear a lot of what's going on, like for example, I'm working from home right now and there's kids downstairs who might be screaming and I might get distracted. When I have my headset in, it's much harder for me to actually hear what's going on out there. And it gets me more into, okay, I'm in this place, I'm listening, and I'm talking to the person on the computer, and there's not much else going on. The other thing to think about is not all of us have the highest quality camera on our computer. So before you're applying for some of these jobs, especially, make sure that you check and make sure that the camera quality on your computer webcam is high enough that when you get to that Zoom interview, for most part, you'll probably be interviewing either on the phone or you'll probably do a Zoom interview at some point. You want your camera quality to be good enough so that they know that you can actually hold professional meetings as well. For some jobs, I had an old computer that my webcam on it wasn't very strong. I actually bought a separate webcam so that I could use that with my laptops to have a higher quality image. It's also good if you get into a mood where you're working a full-time job that's remote. A lot of people find it helpful to have multiple screens for their computer. So they might have their desktop that they do work at, and then they have their laptop. And that way, if you're doing a lot of different things, like you're in a Zoom meeting, but you need to be pulling up some reports or doing some data analysis at the same time that you can share, you can have one on one screen and you can be talking and communicating through Zoom on the other one.
Great. This is a great time to put in a plug for the UMaine Career Center services. If you
Yeah.
have a Zoom or a phone or a Skype interview coming up, we would be happy to practice with you. So
Mhm.
what you don't want to have happen is get into that interview situation and kind of
Mhm.
never have done it before. And we're all working remotely. So again, we talked yesterday about the different ways that you can reach us and access our services. Feel free to reach out if you have a scheduled interview on one of these platforms coming up, or you feel like you might have an interview coming up soon and you just like to practice. We're happy to help you guys out with that. So
Yeah.
question number 3.
Sure.
You touched on this a little bit, but can you talk a little bit more about professionalism and maybe work-home boundaries?
Yeah.
It's a different situation living where you work. If you have pets, if you have siblings at home, if you have partners or spouses or roommates, um,
Mhm.
can you talk a little bit about boundaries and professionalism?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that this is something that we're all learning right now as we've all gone remote, even with our schoolwork. I, work with the university, but my partner's a student, my daughter's a student. We're all working remotely and learning this right now. You do really have to set those boundaries. And one of the best advice that I can give everyone is that give yourself a good routine. Stay with that routine. Wake up in the morning like you would if you were going to school or you were going to work, and get ready for the day as if you were going to leave the house, even if you're not leaving the house, so that you are comfortable that when that 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or whatever your work, what time you start work, when that time comes, you feel like you're ready for the day, you've gotten dressed, you're not working in your pajamas, you've had a good breakfast. And so when you sit down to work, you're really fully like, okay, I'm getting work done now. This is my work time. Again, having that space separate from all your family and everything is great, but some people maybe don't have that. So you'll have to really communicate with the people around you. If you're, having to work in your kitchen because you don't have an office space, maybe you need to tell your roommates or your kids or your parents or whoever else is there, like, oh, I'm going to be on a Zoom call for the next hour. Can you please all go in the other room and remain quiet while I'm doing that. So communication, if you're in a house of other people, is definitely important.
Yes. Naomi
Getting
just reviewed
dressed.
that.
Yes,
I
and
yelled,
I had to do that. So
yes.
before this video, both BJ and I had to say to my husband, don't come in here. I'm going to be on a video. And BJ had to talk to her children. So it's, that's life when you're working from home. And a lot of people, we all are making that transition right now. But there are still people who their job has been to work remotely, and they're having to find that balance. And so if you're going into a full-time job, these are things to think about right up front. Is how do you create that professional space in your house? How do you create that schedule and you stick to the schedule? Like, have lunch at the same time every day. Just like if you were to go to an office, take the 15-minute breaks to go out for a walk, or leave the room that you're working in and have a new setting. And then at that, okay, 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, whatever time your shift would end, if you were in the office, be done with work and be able to like kind of walk away from it for a while. So that is a hard thing for a lot of people. I know I'm challenged by it, that when you're at home and you're working at home, it can feel like you're always at work. But definitely creating those boundaries and communicating that even with your coworkers or with your supervisor, and saying, oh, I'm done at 5 o'clock. I don't check my emails after that. That's definitely very helpful as well, so that you can like integrate kind of that regular routine. And then if you do that every day, instead of, okay, I'm going to sleep until noon and then work in the middle of the night, if that schedule works for you, just keep that schedule. I'm not saying that it's wrong to, like, if you're somebody who's a night owl and you want to be up all night doing data analysis and you don't need to talk to anybody, that's fine. But try to be consistent with it, because that's going to help you be more consistent in your work, be a more reliable employee, and be ultimately more successful at whatever you're doing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So if students have any questions about working remotely, applying for any of these positions, finding any of these positions, again, please reach out to any of our staff members. We'd be happy to help you. I have one bonus question just for fun.
Yeah.
So I heard through the grapevine that someone in your household, someone in your family has recently gone viral, and like really big viral. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I can tell you a little bit about that, and maybe I'll even post the video on
That
our
would be great.
Facebook page for everybody to share. My daughter's birthday was on Sunday, and my husband shaves his beard for her birthday every year. And so they made a TikTok video of him shaving his beard into different hairstyles. And my daughter posted it on TikTok, and as of last night, it had over 8 million views.
Crazy.
And like, she's got 20,000 followers now. And so that's been fun, but it also shows another way that people are getting creative, how you can reach out and connect with one another during this time period. And yeah, it's really funny.
That's really cool. Well, thank you so much, Naomi, for joining
Yeah,
us,
of course.
giving us all this great information. We will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good day.
Okay, bye everyone.